Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the JK Experience. The man, the myth, he's back with me.
More mythical than manical, I think.
Is your reputation preceding you?
I think so. I feel like it is on a daily basis, but it's good to be here.
Yeah.
I feel like I need retrained on this. Like, it all feels awkward.
Right.
I don't know why.
I tell you what, it is getting harder and harder to take time to do this, and we have the best of intentions, and we love being here. This is awesome. It's just life and business and all of the things that all the goals, all of the strategies that we've been putting into place have really started to catch up with us this fast already, and we're not even really into our busy season, and we are just running.
Yeah, that is so true. You and I both agree that we could sit in this podcast studio and do this all day, every day. We enjoy it that much. But we've got all these other things going on, and you're right, we're not even into our busy season yet, and we are rocking and rolling. I watched you yesterday. It was fun to me because I know you had a couple of appointments that kind of snuck up on you and kind of got shoehorned in there.
Yeah.
But I felt bad. There was nothing I could do to take any of that off your plate, but you were like a pinball, like boom, 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 boom.
Right.
And I was like, oh, you poor son of a gun.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it just happened to be, it really did, and it was a crazy day. But, one of the things that I recognized that yesterday too, and in the old me, I wouldn't make time for the things that were still important. I still got the things that were really important into my life. It just happened to be a really crazy, insane day. I really feel, honestly, like the last quarter has just been nothing but a blur, and it's gone into this part of the year as well too, and that's exciting, but that's also in itself brings challenges, and I'm still kind of working through all of that and the weeds through all of that, but it kind of leads me into what we want to talk about today, but it's been just like we've had a lot of intentional things that were going on here recently, and it's like we're going from one project to the next project. I know that you've challenged yourself in a big, big way here with something that we're doing internally with the company, and I'd just like to know, like, how are you doing with that? We talk about challenges all the time. We talk about like setting big goals. And you're in this midst of like takeoff, like you've gotten the preparation, and now you're starting to take off into that, and you're starting to see after a week or two's commitment. What does that look like right now?
Man, it's hard. So it's so difficult because what it is, let me give you guys a little bit of background. It's called 100 Conversations in 100 Days. And this kind of was a branch off of the 75 Hard Challenge. When you were going through that, that's when I came up with this concept, implemented it right after the first of the year. I think I'm 10 days in right now. 10 days in, and it's hard. Like the first, right off the bat. And so what I'm doing is I'm putting myself in 100 conversations in 100 days. And they're not just conversations like you and I have. They are intentional conversations with people outside of our company who I feel like I can impact in some kind of positive manner.
Right.
They're not all recruiting calls, mind you, but they might turn into a referral down the road. So that's why I'm having these 100 intentional conversations. And at first, it was like no problem. Like, you see my hash marks. So every one of the hash marks on my board is somebody that I called that I couldn't make contact with. Either I called them and they didn't answer, or I reached out to them on a text message, no response, because that happens in my business.
Right.
And then once I finally have that conversation, have that intentional conversation, that's my day. I leave it at that. Now, will I go back and revisit that conversation? Yes, but I have to find somebody new to have another conversation with the next day.
Right.
So that's been difficult, but I put it out there. I told you, I said, hold me accountable. I told Thomas to hold me accountable. He's come in and said, hey, how's that going? And, so I'll puke on him a little bit and just be like, oh my God, it's so hard. Today, I literally ran out of people to contact. So I'm scrambling. I'm going through my emails. I've come up with a couple other things to hopefully get in front of more people. And it's something that I set forth for myself, but it's been a challenge.
Yeah. Well, and I think you are a perfect example of what we all go through, by the way. Regardless if it's the 100 conversations in 100 days, it's the new diet, it's the new commitment that we make, that we say, you know what, I'm really fired up and I'm going to do this, and then you get into it for, in 2 weeks, and you go, I'm not really that fired up about it anymore, and I'm really not that motivated by it anymore. And if it's just about motivation, you're gonna fail, right? And you've done some really great things to help you to achieve this. It's not gonna be easy, man.
No.
Change is not easy. And you've already put into place accountability, which is massive. Like if you can put in accountability in your life, oh my gosh, you will start to really achieve things. You won't be perfect and you're going to fail and you're going to take steps back, but you have with accountability at least this thing in your life where people you're going to be like, oh man, if I don't do this, just because I'm not motivated doesn't mean they're going to stop asking, right?
That's right.
And so I mean, if anything, that's at least enough motivation in that to keep working on it and keep moving forward.
Yeah, and it's up there. It's up there for all the world to see, and it's on my big whiteboard, and I'm ticking off the conversations, and anybody who comes in there, most people who come in there ask me, hey, what's that about?
Mm-hmm.
So I share it with them, and so every time I explain it to somebody, they're wanting to hold me accountable too.
Right.
So that is a big part of it. Anything you're doing, anything that you want to do, this big thing that you had last weekend.
Yeah.
There were times when people were asking you, hey, how's that going?
Right.
That's that accountability. We talked about that in the 5 steps. So I think I think that is such an important part of it.
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt about it. I mean, one of the things, so we did the big event, the Kingsmen Event,
Yes.
and this was Man on Fire. This is something that has been in my head and in my heart for about 2 years almost now, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to plan this and how we were going to do it, and literally just trying to get this out of my head, right? And it wasn't until I committed on a date, which was literally like a month and a half ago at the most, right? And we said, this is the day we're going to do it, and I was like, oh crap, we've got to get a bunch of stuff done, right?
Yeah.
And I've been feverishly, like just getting things done. Just the little things, and the little things take forever, by the way.
Yeah.
You know, you don't realize this when you're setting these goals. You're like, hey man, I just always back to weight because that's the easiest thing to talk about. But like, yeah, listen, I want to lose 20 pounds. You don't realize all the little things that you need to do in order to lose that weight, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about making the commitment, man. It's all the other things that you have to do in order to put yourself in the best position for that, right? Or if you want to grow your business, it's not just saying, hey, listen, I'm going to 10x my business this year. You got to do the work, man.
Yes.
And often the work is the little details that you've been avoiding forever. And so they're painful to do the little details because the little details don't always make a huge difference. But it's like, once again, we've talked about before, it's the little pebble and then little pebble and the little pebble and little pebble. And you knock all those suckers out so you can start working on bigger rocks. And then finally you start working on the boulder, man.
Yeah.
And that's what happened with this Kingsman event, is that it was just so many little pebbles that were taking so much time.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't feel like I was making any momentum. And then eventually it was just like one day I wake up and I go, holy crap, we got all those things done. I can check this off and check this off. And we literally had most of our things done within a day or two of the event, which was, thank God we did. And it was awesome. I mean, the event turned out great. We had a number of men there. I tell you what, it could not have gone any better and smoother, more professionally. I mean, it was awesome, dude. And the conversations we're having afterwards have just been, they've been really life-changing and life-altering, which is what we really wanted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the whole goal of the Kingsman event, was to impact people's lives, right?
Yeah.
And I've been hearing a little bit about it since then, and I'm just happy. I'm happy it came about in that way.
Yeah.
I'm also happy for you that you decided to put that early deadline on it, because I feel like if you hadn't have done it right now,
Yes.
it may not have happened.
That's exactly right.
Right? Because, already, no sooner did you finish with that, and we're looking forward to the next big event for us, and it's going to consume all of your time.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm already moving on to these other projects. I'm also looking at the follow-up and how we actually continue to move forward. But, I hit this a couple weeks ago about the one word and how it's so important to have that word. And we're going to dive into that a little bit more today. But it's so important to have a date and a time. It's put that in there. Like, when do you want to have this project completed? Because that in itself will motivate you to get your butt in gear and do the things that you have avoided over a number of months, a number of years, a number of days, whatever that is. Dates and times are so important, man. And I tell you what, that date was fast approaching, and I didn't have any room for error, because if we didn't get it done, it was going to make a crap show out of that event, and I did not want that.
You got it. And so here's the thing. You and I both agree on the fact that neither one of us do New Year's resolutions, and I'm doing air
Right.
quotes for us listening.
Yeah.
But we don't do New Year's resolutions. But here's the important part about a New Year's resolution. It gives you a date and a time to start that, right?
Right.
And we've talked about this on other podcasts. Gym memberships go way up right around the first year because people are putting a deadline on that. They're like, right now is when I start. Now, I'm not an advocate for waiting until a new year to start something,
Yes.
but it's very important because they have set that date and time. Now, we have an alternative to a New Year's resolution, and you've talked about it before, but let's go another layer deeper.
Yeah, it goes back to the one word, and I kind of did that podcast a couple of weeks ago about why this one word is so important, and it really had me thinking about this because, as I told you guys, if you listen to that last podcast, the word should scare you.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm barely being serious with this. The word should scare you because of what it really potentially means in your life, the implications that it's going to mean in your life, and what you are going to have to either go through or the person you're going to have to become. And when we think about having greatness in our life, when we think about like having an exceptionally great business or an exceptionally great marriage or an exceptionally great relationship with our kids, all of those things, nobody wants average.
No.
Right? I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, if you want average, you're in the wrong podcast, by the way.
You got it.
You want exceptionalism in your life. And when you think of words, when you think of things that are going to be meaningful in your life, if the word doesn't scare you, it's the freaking wrong word, man. And I was scared to death. I've shared this with you. I've shared this with our leadership team. I shared it a little bit with our office today. But my word is fire, and it scares the crap out of me because in the past, fire always meant that I was willing to burn everything down.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that, dude.
No.
And so part of it is like, how do I maneuver through this word for this year? And listen, we've already started off with challenges this year. I mean, and we talk on the show all the time. This whole podcast is about giving you the reality of the fact that everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Not a lot of people want to do the work. Or everybody wants to be an entrepreneur and make millions and millions of dollars. They don't understand all of the work and all the challenges and all the disappointments and all of the conversations you have to have in order to see that. It's very rarely do people have this instant success in their life, right? And for those that have, hats off to you. Get on the show and show us how you did it. But we are grinding this out every single day, brother. And the word for me has given me the motivation to go through all the crap that we're having to go through to get there, dude.
Yeah, how about it? I see this, and you said that. You said, man, we were talking about your one word, and you're like, man, I feel like I've been tested every single day of this year so far. And it's true, because there have been opportunities for you to stray from that word, but you made the commitment, you have the accountability with everybody knowing what that is, and now you have to live it.
Yeah.
Like, that's the final step in the one word. You have to live it out.
Yeah. Yeah, and you said a great word, is that I've been tested every single day about and it always goes back to this word. And today I shared at the office meeting, is that I had to realize that if I was being tested, I had to look at the opportunity as it was actually refining me through this testing, right? So what was it maybe burning off in my life that I no longer needed? Or what was it doing to actually make me a better person and help me grow? Because I mean, we all know this, like the majority of the time that we grow is when we are tested, when we go through hell, when we go through challenges, when we go through difficult situations, that's when we usually grow. We very rarely grow during success, right? We might grow financially, and we might grow in our leadership, and we might grow a little bit in like our substantial our resume and what we do with that, but we don't truly grow as a human being unless we go through struggle.
Yeah.
Right. And and I'm choosing right now. Listen, if I'm going through struggle, it's going to be worth it, man. It is going to refine me, and it's going to make me a better leader, a better person, and it's going to also give me more resilience in my life.
Yeah.
Because that's so important, man. If we don't have resilience in our life, and you have one bad day and it knocks you down for a month, dude, that's not leadership at all, man. It's easy to lead when times are good.
You bet.
And we've talked about that. It's so easy to lead when things are awesome, it's great, and you feel super confident about yourself, and you're going through all the things, and everything is great, and no matter what you did, you can't lose, right? Dude, leadership is when you are in the crap and you still keep your integrity and you still keep your character and you still show up for other people, by the way.
You got it.
I shared that this morning, is that last night as I was preparing for today's talk at the office meeting, I didn't really have anything to say because I was not in a great, healthy place.
Mm-hmm.
I was frustrated. I was exhausted from the events. I was exhausted from just everything that had been going on, and I just had to really find myself. And that's when and that's when it came to me about like, hey, listen, is this just testing you to bring you down, or is it actually refining you so that you could become better and stronger through this. And that's where the message came from.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, it resonated with me because, you know, there's two ways you can look at that. Am I being just tested, simply tested, or am I being refined? And then to couple that with something you've said in the past, are things happening to me or are they happening for me, right? I think those are almost synonymous statements.
Yeah.
But you have to have that mindset of going, all right, am I going to grow from this? Is it going to make me a better leader, father, husband, whatever? And if the answer is yes, then you keep on going.
That's
right?
exactly right.
So I really, like I said, it really resonated with me because I heard it, and I'm like, oh, that's great, because it's all in perception, right? How do I want to look at this?
Yeah. Well, and going back to this word, the reason why the word is so important is because you're going to go through hell. You're going to go through challenges. You're going to go through disappointments. And for me, when I was sitting last night, just kind of laying in bed, you know, preparing for today's talk, like, my goals didn't really, like, they weren't the first things I thought of. You know, like, just my positive attitude and energy wasn't the thing that was exciting and motivating me, right? The thing that changed me was my word. I went back to, like, okay, my word for this year is fire. What does that mean in my life? What do I want it to mean in my life? What could it possibly mean that would not be healthy in my life, right? And I literally broke down my word, and why was that such an important, why was it resonating with me? Why was this word chosen for me? I didn't choose the word. I think the word was chosen for me in this part of my life. And because of that, I was able to start to look at why everything was happening, or if things were happening this way, what was I going to do to help myself overcome that, right? What position was I going to put myself in mentally to make sure that I show up tomorrow not on a downer, not defeated, not worrisome, none of those things. I wanted to come in excited, on fire for the people that were showing up for that meeting, man.
You got it. I say this on a regular basis when we're in leadership, and I say, you know what? The next person who comes through your door doesn't care what kind of day you're having. And the same is true for you. Now, you have had some struggles. I know this because we've talked about them every single day. You kind of confided us in leadership, saying, hey, listen, here's what's going on in my world. So if I seem a little bit preoccupied, bear with me, right?
Yeah.
But guess what? All of those 30, 40 people in that room, they don't care what kind of struggles you're having personally. They just want to know that you're going to give them something that they can carry out of that room and go implement in their lives and hopefully make it better. So that is exactly right. And I'm glad you reached deep and kind of finished strong on that. It was, and it's funny because we have a person in our building here who doesn't always take the positive away from those visits.
Yeah.
And that person came to me today and said, you know what, great one today.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's awesome, good, right? So even if it was just that one person, which I know it wasn't, even if it was that one person that you impacted, good for you.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I will tell you that we've heard some good feedback from that already. I mean, there's been some posts, and I've noticed that we've been tagged in those, so it's awesome. I mean, once again, I think that you have to be authentic and real with people. You don't want to vomit things, you know, that once again, you have to know what your limit is there. But I want to hit on one thing really quick. You know, this podcast is so much about leadership as well, too. And one of the things that is so important is that as you've heard through this message, this podcast, is that, listen, bad things will happen. Challenges will happen, and you have to have some ways to overcome those challenges and help them in your life and make you a better person through that. One of the key things for me is also obviously having a very inner core of people that I have full confidence in, that I can say, listen, I just want to be honest with you, and I got to lay this out, because one of the things that I've learned and I've tried to implement is that I want to be authentic with the people that I trust the most. And so, you know, first of all, I'm very honest with Kate, and she knows everything, and we communicate, and she is my partner, man. We are in this together, right? Yep. But then also the inner core. And so I was going to say, you know, I just want to say, as a leader, if you don't have people in your sphere, your table, that you trust enough to have those types of conversations where you can be vulnerable and say, hey, listen, here's what's going on in my world right now, and listen, I'm not asking you to solve it. I just want you to be aware of it, and I want you to help me get through it emotionally if I come to you, or if maybe I'm not in the best mood or whatever. This is my distraction right now, and I want you to know about it simply because I trust who you are in my world, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people don't have that. And I really encourage you, you don't want to do this battle alone. It is way too hard to do it alone.
You got it. That is so true. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because after your meeting, Mandy and I went to lunch and we were talking about it, and it evolved into basically a conversation about a struggle that I've been having. But I hadn't really shared it with her. Like, I mean, she knows what's going on, but I hadn't really kind of bared my soul or opened myself up to her. I was just trying to kind of deal with it on my own.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, kudos to her, because she encouraged me to open up. And by the time we were done with lunch and we were back here to work, I was feeling so much better about it. And all it took was kind of unburdening myself a little bit and having a different perspective on that. And I got to tell you, the second half of my day was way better than the first, because I now had an ally in this struggle.
Yeah, and it was so true though, right? We carry this. This is the weight of the world on our shoulders, right? And I know a lot of men do this. You know, at the Kingsmen Event, we talked about this, man. We have the weight of our families. We have the weight of the world. We have the weight of the finances. We have the weight of like so many decisions. We have the weight of the responsibility, all these things that we put on ourselves. And if we are not communicating with the person that we say we love the most, or the person that they say they love us the most, man, we are just doing ourselves a complete disservice. And it's amazing when you can be vulnerable. It's amazing when you can have those conversations, what that does for your confidence, right? You don't have to tackle the world alone, man. And if you are not having those conversations, those intimate, personal conversations with people, I will tell you, like, that's why people get self-medicating. That's why people do bad things in their life. That's where communication breaks down, and then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you don't realize that you don't know the person that's right next to you, right? In businesses, it happens all the times where you start telling yourself a story, and then you believe that story, and the next thing you know, you've ruined that relationship, or you've fired somebody, or they fired you. Like, you have to get to a point where you're comfortable having honest conversations with people.
Yeah, and that's so often we, as the big strong guy, will internalize that stuff, and you may not realize that the answer to your problem is just one conversation away. And now I want a full disclosure. It wasn't like I was keeping it from Mandy. I wasn't being intentional about keeping it. I was just like, man, I just got to figure this out. And it wasn't life-changing, but it was one of those things where you're like, all right, I got to deal with this. I got to figure out how to mend these fences or move on or whatever. And she just slowly drug it out of me. So kudos to her. But all it was is that one conversation. And now I feel 100 times better about it.
Well, and I'm going to reverse this too. Like, women, I know women don't talk very well to their husbands or the significant people in their lives. So, you know, women, you have just as much responsibility. You bear a lot of things on your shoulders as well too. So you need to be able to communicate with people. So if you are trying to tackle all of this on your own as well, I mean, you have got to let that off of your shoulders. You cannot be the woman that you want to be in your life if you are holding all of these things in and not allowing it to get off of that.
Yeah, so true. And again, I'm gonna pair it up with my relationship. So many times, Mandy will come home from a hard day and just lay it out. Right. But sometimes she won't, and sometimes I'll have to ask her. I'll be like, "Hey, everything all right? How was your day?" And then I start to get a little bit out of her, and then I start to get a lot more out of her, and then at some point, I'm sorry I asked. But no, that's not true. But and she'll ultimately, if I encourage that out of her, and most of the time, I want to point this out, most of the time, she doesn't want me to solve the problems.
Yes.
She just wants me to listen.
Big time. Absolutely. Yeah, in fact, when I remember to it, I'm always asking Kate, hey, listen, is this something you want me to solve, or is this something you're just wanting to vent on?
You got it.
When we're really doing well, I always remember that question. I don't remember it all the time, but it's a powerful question that I learned really late in our marriage, to be honest with you, just over the last couple of years.
Yeah. You know, you and I were in the positions we're in. We want to fix things, right?
Yeah.
We want to offer up suggestions on how to remedy this situation. That's not always what's needed.
Yeah. So honestly, you guys, I want to just go back to this because it's just so important. I got to drive this home with you. If you have not taken time to establish that word for your year, you've got to take some time. It will give you so much relief. It'll help you get out of some of those low points in your life, those struggles that you're going through. And I tell you what, it's a process. So go back and listen to the podcast we put a couple weeks ago. James, just real quick, I know we're running out of time here, but I know that you're going through this process. Where are you hung up on right now?
Man, I am, Josh. So for the past 2 years, my word has hit me like a bolt of lightning, and which is how it's supposed to come. Your word is supposed to come from above, right? Really, it says that in the book. And I just haven't received it yet. I want to. I want to be able to post my word and put it on my computer and do everything I've done in the past, but the two previous words were so strong. One was inspire. The very first one was inspire. Then the second one was steadfast. And steadfast actually came to me through a scripture that was shared with me, and it resonated. And all year long, I had to keep reminding myself that I had to be steadfast in all areas of my life, in my relationship, spiritually, mentally, professionally. I had to remain steadfast, and I feel like I did. It drove me. When we were talking on previous episodes where I said, "Hey, we've got to finish the year strong," that was my word living out.
Yeah.
So this year, I haven't been given it yet, and I think that sometimes the more you want it, the more elusive it is.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of taking it easy. I know I need a word, but it's not here yet.
So I guess my question to you would be then is, are you spending the alone time? Are you sitting in silence? Are you doing all of those things on a frequent basis to make sure? And then are you repeating those words in your mind to see how they resonate in your world?
Yeah, daily. And I got to tell you, there have been times when I've been in that meditative time in my day, and it's usually in the morning for me. And I've been meditating. I'm like, oh, there it is. But then I put it to the test, and I go, hey, is it professionally, relationally, mentally, physically? And if the answer is no on any one of those, it's not the word.
Yeah.
So I have been doing that, but it's just I haven't run onto it yet.
Yeah. One thing that I'm sure you're doing, but just for everybody else out there, what you want to do is you want to see like, okay, what are my goals in my personal life? What are my goals in my professional world, right? What are the things that I want to accomplish this year? And as you are talking about that, and as you're thinking about that, some words will start to resonate with you. And for me, when I was trying to figure about action, right? I was just trying to figure like, man, I feel like I'm getting real stagnant in the things that I'm doing right now. As I was looking at it, I just kept on hearing this. I heard a previous word, and it wasn't even action. And I thought it was this other word was going to be it. And then all of a sudden, it just kind of came to me eventually, right? I kind of struggled with it like you did. And then it was like action. And I'm like, okay, what does action mean? And then as I began to think about what action meant in my life and look at it, then it was like, okay, that's exactly right, man. This is what I need in my life.
Yeah, and when you finally find it, there's no doubt.
Yeah, yeah. All right, guys. Hey, we're going to wrap this up here. We kind of went along, but man, we just had some really intentional things we wanted to talk about. Hey, listen, as always, you guys know, like we don't have any commercials on this thing. We're not doing any we're not promoting anything like that. The only thing that we ask for you guys to do is to share this podcast, respond on this podcast. Let us know how we're doing. If this resonates with you, give us a star. Give us some stars. I mean, there are people out there that do not know about this podcast, and I'm going to challenge you. Share it with people. We know that it's making an impact. Now, we get messages from people all the time. You might have been giving us those messages yourself. These need to get into the ears and the minds of other people. There's too many people out there with too many questions that don't know the direction in their life that they need to head to. And this could be something that could be tremendously beneficial. And you get to be that person. You get to be that person that pours into their life. And as a leader, that is our responsibility. So I'm going to challenge you out there. If you are listening to this podcast right now, share it with somebody that you believe this message would resonate with or be empowerment to somebody, because they need to hear it. So there's my call to action, but this is also kind of my plea with you too, because it is so important for leaders to help create other leaders. And we are pouring into your life. Whose life are you going to pour into? Got it?
Sounds like a good plan.
All right. Okay, hey, you guys, hey, thanks as always, and we definitely look forward to talking to you on the very next episode. Wait, before you go, we want you to know how thankful we are for you listening to the